They were all evil, but there are levels of evil, and ISIS takes the cake. What they did with kids and training kids and burning the Jordan pilot alive while he's still in a cage, it made it very personal. And I enjoyed every single one of them we killed. So I fill him up with like 6, 7, 8 rounds, and I go to transition to the next guy. I give him the good news just like I gave the good news to his 2 friends. All this is happening quick. Boom, 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 boom. Final guy. I can see plain as day. This guy's a lot closer at shooting me than I am shooting him. Maybe I don't call my wife tonight. Maybe I don't see my kids again. You've accepted your fate that this may be your last night on Earth, and that's okay because you've got a job to do.
So you make it through OTC, and you get sent to your squadron. And there's, I think the cultures, I guess you could call it, between the different squadrons, or they are different between the
Yeah.
squadrons. Do you feel like you went to the one that was the best fit for you?
Yes and no. There's one other squadron I feel like sometimes when I look back that may have been a better fit for me. I'll probably answer it more like this. There's another squadron I could have went to that probably aligned better with my personality. The squadron I went to was a squadron I needed to go to.
For 30-year-old Brent.
Yes. 20-year-old Brent should have went the other squadron. 29-year-old Brent, who's looking to become 30-year-old Brent, needed to go to this squadron. Or else I'd have continued less checked than I should be.
Fair enough. So how long between making it through OTC and going to your squadron do you do your first deployment with the unit?
As soon as I get there, won't talk about the specifics of it, but as soon as I get there, we go out and we start training on a special mission that and we end up doing that a lot. You wouldn't believe the amount of missions I trained on that we never went on. The Delta Forces always has to be ready for these missions. That was really cool to be get on the inside of, hey, at any point if this goes, this is going to happen, and no one will ever know it happened. But this is what we're training for. So that was a really cool experience. Immediately graduate, get pulled into this, and be like, hey, don't talk to anyone about this. This is what we're doing. This is what we're training for. We're going to go train for it in case we get the call between now and then. That was a really cool, I guess I'm in the Delta Force. Yeah. Then we blew out for a mission, a different mission than that. And that we got stagnant there. We waited for a while, and then we came straight home from that and went and repacked our bags and went straight to Afghanistan. So really, hit the ground running. Honestly, at the Delta Force. But then again, probably every OTC graduate would say I hit the ground running at the Delta Force. There's only running. There's only running and more running. They don't hide the fact. They will tell you right to your face and remind you again the very next week. The Delta Force will take way more from you that it intends to give back to you. And you hear that at the beginning, and you're like, yeah, sure. And I'm willing to give, and I want this so bad, and this is everything I've trained for, and this is the pinnacle of the United States military. I'll gladly do that. And then, if you're lucky, 10 years later, you're going to realize what exactly they meant by that, and what the price of what you have to pay the Delta Force for a lifetime of getting to say that I was there, and it's a heavy price.
Yeah, I wanna come back to that because I think that specifically is really, really important for us civilians to wrap our heads around. But do you remember your first operation with the unit?
I do. Just like SF, you don't remember. You don't forget your first. I will go over some generalities of it. It was I did I did get to kill people at a very close distance, armed men within a small room, and it was a uh, very real experience. That at the end of the day, like we are going to get within a small room in Afghanistan's 10 foot by 10 foot. Like you're going to get inside a 10 foot by 10 foot room with an armed individual, and you're going to shoot them hopefully before they shoot you, and that is part of the name of the game. And these guys don't want to go quietly, and it is your job to do that. And they've given you the training, and they've sure as hell given you the equipment, and they sure as hell have given you the teammates. Um, and it was very quick, um, a very quick baptism by fire, and walking out of that target, going, that was lively. Yet we all walked out of it. And my team leader started talking to me.
Right after you prove yourself.
That was
What's your name
that
again?
yeah. I've been here for 6 months.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So it was everything you'd hoped it would be.
I'll tell a little bit, except for this. There was ironic being a commo guy. I did have a little bit of problem on my very first mission because when everyone else knew what was going on, I did not. My Peltors decided to take a crap on me right before landing, and it was a target that was mobile and then went into a structure, and it was very fluid. So it was very important to hear these updates and these calls all over the commo. And my headset went absolutely quiet, and my headset was never going to work again. And so I hit my first. I didn't even know we were hovering and planned to unask the helicopter. I'm like, what do we? I don't even know what we're doing. It just looks like we're kind of sitting here for a little bit trying to figure everything out. And then my assistant team leader at the time just jumps off and starts running. So I'm like, well, I guess if he's running, I'm gonna run. And it took me a long time to figure out what are we doing here? Who are we after? Like, what's changed? This wasn't the plan. And for me to let everyone know, my headsets don't work. So if you want to tell me so if you want me to know what's going on, you're gonna have to tell me. So that was another unfortunate incident on my very first mission. My headset went out. Not what you want. Not what you want. But at least you went from the idiot that didn't know what was going on to your team leader to, okay, well, now that makes sense why you were the idiot that didn't know what was going on. Go get your Peltors checked.
I heard you say in a different interview that you guys had a Kid Up song.
Oh, yeah.
Which was 3 Shades of Black by Hank Williams III. So if you haven't heard that, which I hadn't at the time, I encourage you to go listen to it and listen to the lyrics.
Every deployment got a different Kid Up song. And I was a part of a couple different troops during my time there. And the culture of that troop really dictated how crazy that Kid Up song may or may not be. Of course, the 3 Shades of Black is when I was a senior guy in Recce, and so I got to dictate the culture. And that was the Kid Up song, 3 Shades of Black, Hank Williams Jr. or Hank Williams III, and great song. I still every now and again it comes across my playlist, and I still think about loading magazines and putting grenades in my pouch and putting my kit on, sitting there in the darkness waiting for a helicopter. Brings back a lot of good memories.
Were you a different man leaving the kit room than you were when you walked into it?
I've always been a pretty upbeat guy, joking around, a lot of smiles. Even when the helicopter's inbound, or coming to pick us up, depending on there's some mission, everyone's pretty quiet and just knows what's going on. But generally speaking, and really most of us were pretty laid back all the way to Wheels Up. And when Wheels Up happened, it's time, it was business time. and it continued to be business time until objective secure. And once you have secured the objective, the shenanigans would come out again. And you got some funny things happening on the objective, but in between wheels up and the objective secure, you got some pretty quiet professionals that sure as hell didn't joke around about much and took their job very, very serious.
Mm. There's a quote in Gates of Fire that I'll just paraphrase, but it essentially says that you need to kind of leave a part of yourself behind because it's not going to do you any favors when you go out and fight. So the part of you that, you know, pulls your wife closer to you when you guys are in bed together, or the part of you that, you know, takes your daughter to go get ice cream. Is there a truth to that?
I don't think if people knew my background and just kind of met me in some, at a house party or some social setting. Now, granted, I get chastised for this a little bit. If I don't know you, I may not be nice to you. I mean, that's not true. I'm not. I'll never be mean to anyone. But I just don't show up and just invite people into my life. I don't really. And part of it is I don't ask you what you do for a living. Well, it's a little bit different now because now I own a business and I have a reason, some answer to this. But it used to be I didn't ask you what you did for a living because I don't want you to ask me what I do for a living. I have I have a cover answer for it, but I don't.
Which was?
Yeah, which was not the truth, and I just. But generally speaking, and if you did get to know me, Brett's a pretty nice guy, fun guy, there if you need him. And had no idea that I could load up on a helicopter in the middle of the night and kill people and load right back up in that helicopter and fall asleep like a baby that, within a couple hours and do it again the next night. I absolutely believe there's a part of you don't bring with you on those missions because to be honest with you, you don't need that part of you. You only bring the useful parts of you.
And something you said before about the guys at the unit, just how kind of calm they were with the bullets flying. I think that's something that a lot of guys are struck by when they first get to that tier 1 level. Did that strike you?
It didn't, to be honest with you, because that's the OTC instructors are just they were seasoned team guys that are now teaching you that have seen surge combat. The Delta Force surge combat were not something I got to experience. I experienced surge combat through SF, and we were still busy. But the Delta Force was, you talk about, going out on a nightly basis and operating. Try going out 2 and 3 times a night and operating. The surge Delta Force single-handedly turned the tide of Iraq. Our smallest unit turned the war in Iraq. That's a true statement. So it's crazy what those guys did, what those guys went through, and when those guys rotated in and out and in and out and did it and did it and did it and did it. So those are the type of guys that are instructing you, and just their demeanor in training, their demeanor in high stress training, their demeanor in everything they do. That's when you finally got to your squadron and got to combat. Those are the type of guys who are now your team leaders, and that's what you expected from them. And then you see that, and they never. It's not necessarily a class they give you or culture they tell you, like, this is now how we act. They lead by example, and you see that's how men act in a stressful situation when everything's falling apart, and they're just standing tall, calm, cool, and collective, and you go, and that's how I want to act.
What's up, guys? Just want to take a quick second to thank you for the incredible support after the first episode. So as of recording this video right now, the channel is over 19,000 subscribers after one episode, which is absolutely insane. So again, thank you so much for that. And as some of you may know, I am a one-man band at the moment. So every video you see on the channel, every edit, every short, I do it all myself right now on top of a full-time job. So I just wanted to mention that to thank you for your support and your patience in between the uploading of these interviews as well. So thanks to you guys, I even got my first sponsor of the podcast, which is amazing. And I'm super excited to share that sponsor is Aura. So unfortunately, right now, we live in a time where all your personal information is out there for anybody on the internet to see, right? Your phone numbers, your home address, your email addresses. And on top of it, data brokers are selling that information to the highest bidder, right? Whoever wants to pay for it. So what Aura does is it automatically detects what of your personal information is out there, and then on an automated basis submits opt-out requests to those companies for you. So they also have a bunch of other cool tools that I won't go down the line on, but a couple that I use right now are their VPN and their password manager as well. So last thing here, guys, in full transparency, I don't do a Patreon. I don't sell merchandise or anything like that. So if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so by signing up for a free trial of Aura with the link aura.com/Dalton Fisher, Fischer. And I'll put the link in the description below. Again, completely free to you. You get to see exactly what of your personal information is out there on the internet. And again, it directly supports my ability to continue to make content for you guys. So that's it. Again, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And back to the show.
2014, the night you got shot. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, that's I was telling you, aggressiveness was, definitely, something and confidence is something that's got me through a lot of my career. It was definitely a good thing, but like any good thing, you can have too much of something. Now, the truth, as I tell this story, I just tell it candidly, and I'm a human. I still make mistakes, and even at this level of the game, every time we go out, it's, even though you have a lot of experience and everything starts to feel like the same old, every mission has its own variables and its own decisions and all new experiences that you now have to come across. So that mission was no exception. It was very unique, and what was unusual about it, we knew that going into it. And this was really a culmination of deployment after deployment after deployment of getting a little more aggressive, getting rewarded for being aggressive, and even to a point where you look back, you're like, maybe I was a little over aggressive, and you think, but you know what? No one else would have killed. Like, I killed that guy because of how aggressive I was, and no one else would have done that. So, they're just not as aggressive, as me, and being aggressive is what it takes, and that's why I get to kill the people I do and you don't, and that's why I went to the Delta Force and you don't. These aren't things I say out loud. I'm just telling you, the internal monologue that gets you to this point. We get called in to a short notice mission, and this particular deployment we were doing was pretty much all we did. Nothing unusual about that. Just another day at work. So we come in. We do get told that this guy's a top 5 HVT. This is a big guy. He's coming in from another country, and he's someone we are very, very much interested in. So that makes it, they're not all top 5 targets. That's unique. Ironically enough, for the reason why he's coming in is because the district that he's coming into, the reason why he's coming in is that district lacked leadership. There's an absence of leadership, and he was going to appoint new leadership. Well, the reason it lacked leadership is because we killed them all. We were doing raids in this area for like the last 2 weeks, and we were going out and just playing whack-a-mole. We were going out, killing them, and killing 5, 6, 7 guys on target every night. We're just demolishing this network. And because of that, he's like, well, I guess we need to, I need to come reassign leadership over here. Well, we caught wind of this. We knew this was happening, and it was another good target because a chance to obviously get this high value target, but also destroy a new batch of leadership that had never even got a chance to move the ball forward, so to speak. So it was a good target, and I'll start. And this is the problem with our counterterrorism tactics as a whole. Why the Delta Force is so effective at it, but why sometimes we don't do a good job in general at counterterrorism, and why the siege of SOTF and the politics and the oversight matters about what we did to hamstring our Green Berets and our Navy SEALs to not let them operate in the way they should. And a warrant officer in SF told me this analogy once, and I've never forgotten about it. And the older I got, the more I saw, the more I did, the more right he was. And he said this. He said, terrorism's kind of like digging a trench, Brent. He goes, and the trench is what is their goal, and what they want to get done is dig this trench. Now, if a terrorist comes and picks up a shovel and he digs 10 feet of trench, and then eventually you come up to him and you kill him, and you're like, hey, you doing terrorist stuff? And then you kill him, and then you go away, and the next guy comes and picks up a shovel, and he digs 13 feet. He's continuing to make progress, and if you don't take him out soon enough, they will always look at the progress the last guy made, and they'll go, he made a good amount of progress. That was good. I can make progress. And there's always the aspect of humanity in it where, well, he did something wrong, and that's why he died. I'll be smarter than him, and I'll do it better. Now, that's the model of that the siege of SOTF has given us, and that headquarters and higher has given us with their policies and the government and everything that's hamstrung our boys doing their job. Take that same model and do like this. Guy wants to dig a trench, which is terrorism, picks up the shovel, and as soon as he picks up the shovel, he's dead. Next terrorist guy comes over there, sees a shovel on the ground, knows that trench needs to be dug. He picks up the shovel, he's dead. Now you got 2 dead bodies laying by a shovel with no trench. This happens a third and fourth time. You know what happens eventually? No one picks up that shovel. That shovel's a death sentence. That's what it takes to stop terrorism. And as long as they're digging a trench and making progress, the next guy will pick up that shovel and think he can do it differently. So that is the reason why the surge worked. I talked about the surge earlier. The surge worked because we were hitting people as soon as they picked up a shovel. They were making no progress. If you were a terrorist, if you wanted to do terrorist activities, if you wanted to be a part of the jihad, it was a death sentence. And someone was going to come to your door. It was only a matter of time. And it worked. In Afghanistan, all the other units at this time were starting to slow down and were starting to fight 2 wars on 2 fronts. They were starting to fight the war they always have been against terrorism, and now they're starting to fight a war against their own higher headquarters, fighting to get out the door. We're the only unit really at this point that's still freely operating and doing what we do, and which is one of the reasons, honestly, of many, that I went to the Delta Force. That was one of the reasons that drove me away from SF, was fighting to do my job and fighting the enemy. I just want to fight one person, just the enemy. So we're here, knocking out targets. Big guy comes in. We give pushback and say, hey, I know this is what you want to do, but there's a better way to go after them. I don't want to give away our tactics, but we'll just say we kindly declined the mission and said, don't worry, we'll get them. It's just not going to be tonight. Nothing about tonight is right. There was a lot of clouds overhead that hindered the visibility of things overhead. It was a rainy night. Some of the intel didn't seem like it was matching up and just seemed fishy, and we just wanted some time to sit on it he wasn't going to get away from us. We had him. You know, we were going to exercise some tactical patience that professionals do every now and again. Well, the command in charge at the time just didn't have that maturity, and they basically said, "Hey, if you guys won't go, we'll send the Rangers because we're going to get them tonight." Rangers are great dudes, but the Rangers aren't the Delta Force, and there's no one's going to argue that. That's not true. There's one guy in the comment section that was in the military that's going to argue that, but no Ranger would ever argue that. It's not said a Ranger. Knock the Green Berets and the Delta Force. No one's the Delta Force. And we knew we're talking about a high-value target with an armed security detachment following them, along with armed future leaders that are there, and they probably have security detachments there. And by the way, because this is a Taliban tribunal, there will be Taliban judges there that have to make it official, and they'll probably be armed. We're having the bad guy barbecue all over again, but now it's at night, and we said don't send the Rangers, don't do this. This is not what they're built for. This is a quick strike surgical target that's going to get really lively. Civilian casualties was a big deal this time in Afghanistan. If you killed a civilian on target, you're going to shut down combat operations for a week while Karzai investigated it. We gave them way too much power, and civilian casualties was a huge thing. So we essentially took a vote on it. And we said, hey, this is a shit sandwich. Are we going to go on it, or are we going to let the Rangers go on it? And if the Rangers go on it, again, not a hit against Rangers, but civilians will probably die. But worse yet, Rangers might die. Like this is what are we going to do? Are we going to go, or are we going to push back and say no? Don't send the Rangers. And by the way, exercise tactical patience. Well, we all made the vote. We're not going to call their bluff on it, and if someone's going to go, we're going to go. That was the right call to make. We'll make that call 10 times out of 10 times. And that's the type of guys that were in that room. And that's the type of guys that are in that unit. And you could have switched that room out with anyone else in that unit. And you'd have got the same result every time. So at this point, there's no reason crying about it and wishing what you would have had and what hire should be doing. Now you have a mission, and how you gonna tackle it. We already knew this from looking at it. There was no good way to attack this target. Other means of infiltration that we normally use just didn't line up for this terrain and the population that was around it. This particular target was in the middle of this, what I would call a fairly almost click wide and full. This village is probably a click wide. And this target, of course, would be right in the middle of that. It is kind of a running joke, kind of like the daytime barbecue. Ironically enough, bad guys always seem to live on the edge of town, which is great because I don't have to walk through town to get there. More times than not, bad guys live on the edge of villages or within a reasonable distance of the edge, and it's awful convenient. This time, like I said, we weren't so lucky, and of course, we could have fast roped on there, and everyone sees Black Hawk Down and sees Navy SEALs fast roping onto oil rigs or ships. They're fast roping onto that because they don't have another option. Like that's horrible. If fast roping sucks, you are on the biggest, loudest target in the area, telling everyone, "Hey, look at me." You're really close to the target. You're really easy to see. And you're unarmed and unable to defend yourself, sliding down a rope one after another, basically just either waiting to get shot on the rope or the bird shot down. It really is a last resort or a unique insertion capability. It's not a go-to. So we decide to take the least worst of all the options and do what we call a Y landing. So you can land on the X, which is right on target. You can land on the Y, which is usually around 500 meters from target, which is outside of the range of AK-47 fire. So we decided to land on the Y and basically haul ass in the town. Before this, as we're getting ready to go, so that's the plan we decide on. We load up the birds. We're going. Sitting there, blades are spinning, and birds starting to power down. And this happens. Would not be the first mission that we didn't go. And so, of course, the question is always, why are we powering down? What's the problem? There was some sort of approval problem. They said, hey, we'll be off in a second. We're just going to power down. This happens again. We power up. We think we have it solved. And then the power goes back down on the helos. And you can hear the power go, woo. And helos never, they only go more power and off the ground. So as soon as you hear that tone starting to come down, everyone goes, what now? Because you're ready to go. Like and I don't want to get dramatic about it, but in a night like this where you know it's a dicey target, you at some point, every one of us has come to some sort of reconciliation. Maybe I don't call my wife tonight. Maybe I don't see my kids again. Maybe tonight's the night. I don't. No one knows this is going to go. And by the time you're on that bird ground, you've accepted your fate. That this may be your last night on Earth, and that's okay because you got a job to do. And then when it powers down, and you get that freedom of life back again, that basically nothing's going to happen to you. Never mind, you're not going. To then be told, hey, get back on that bird. Never mind, you got to put your life on the line again. Again, I don't necessarily like the way I describe that of sorts, but it's hard to really describe the feeling that people generally are not going to be able to correlate with of what it's like to get on a helicopter on a high value target as a member of the Delta Force. It could be an emotional point, but again, you just stuff those emotions down deep and you don't deal with them because those aren't good emotions to have. So instead, you mess with people. Which is what I prefer to do. Rather than consider my demise, I'd rather mess with someone. My favorite target was Josh, and I messed with him every chance I got, and he never caught on to it. It seemed, but I'd like to think it's because my delivery was that good, and so it's powering down. I fake a phone call on my radio. He's talking to me like, "Hey, stop." Yep. Okay. Roger that. All tracking it. Go ahead. He's like, what was that about? I was like, you didn't hear that? He's like, didn't hear a word. I was like, I'd get that checked out. He goes to tell me something. Are you serious? Hey, Josh. Okay. Yep. Makes sense to me. Good update. All right, standing by. Well, you got that one right, Josh. He's like, and now he's freaking out. He's like, "What is wrong with my comms?" I'm looking around the bird, all the other guys. They know what I'm doing from the get-go. They know I'm messing with Josh because I'm talking to Josh. Chances are, if I'm talking to Josh, I'm messing with Josh. Me and him are good friends. That's kind of the relationship we had. He's freaking out. At this point, I go to do it again. I can't keep a straight face, and I start. We all. The whole bird is laughing at him now, and now he realizes I've got him again. And he gets upset, jokingly upset. He goes to walk off the bird, and he goes, "You know what? I hope you get shot tonight." And we just laughed and laughed. I don't care. You can tell me I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in bad luck. I don't believe in anything. You can tell me that every night. I could care less. Now, I say that. I've never told another man. I hope you get shot tonight. But that weighed nothing in the back of my mind. We lift off, 10 minutes later. So we hit the objective. Everything's a little bit, what we thought. We got inserted a little bit in the wrong spot my team did. We actually got inserted right in someone's backyard. And that yard had like a 10-foot brick wall around it that the bird just dropped us off and left. And so we had to basically clear into the house to clear through the house to get out of the house. So, just had a risk GPS at the time. But I saw as we were coming in, the last, 10, 15 seconds of us landing, I had a good field of view and understood basically we were in base where we needed to go. So I start heading off in that direction. We're running as fast as we can through alleyways to try to get to all of us converge on this compound as fast as we can. Because in the day, we know we didn't land on the X, we landed on the Y. We want to keep them contained. Containment at this point is everything. So we get there, we get enough of the force together, we commence the assault, only to find out there's not a soul inside here. It is a ghost town. Now, of course, that only means two things. Did they escape before we could, close off the objective? Or was this bad intel and they were never here, to begin with? The fires inside and the literature and all the paperwork proved that there were a lot of people here just a few minutes ago, and they left in a hurry. So we felt better, about the intel. We were upset that just because of the way everything was, there's really the situation we got handed was what it is. So what are we going to do about it now? Well, we knew that the target's house had an uncle who lived just a couple blocks away. And so we'd made a plan from the get-go. If there was a dry hole, what would we do? We'd do a follow-on to the uncle's house. So we start doing that. My secondary job that night, besides being an assaulter, was if there were squirters from the objective, people who ran out into various places, as the assault force followed on to that mission, then I would go to these small pockets of individuals and interrogate them visually or verbally and see what it is they're doing out here hiding under trees in the middle of the night. So I start taking my band of merry men, and we start saying hi to the locals. It's me, a commo guy who was a Green Beret, former Green Beret, one of the best commo guys we've ever had, legend. We had a canine with the canine handler. We had one other guy with us, and 3 Afghans. That was my squad. I'm taking. So, we start basically eliminating these pockets from place to place. We're having a good night so far, but every pocket we eliminate, we go through not the guys we're looking for.
Do you mean going from place to place and not finding squirters?
Going to place, killing people in the middle of the night that thought they were hiding from us. I had no idea. I knew exactly where you are the whole time, and I walked right to your location, and I filled you with holes, and then looked through your dead body and found out you weren't the guy we were looking for, but you were absolutely an armed terrorist that came from that target location and was a justified kill. Just tell you exactly what it is. So we're doing this, having a good time, and we get one that I just don't like. I've never liked it. It's always been a little bit of an issue. We get hey, we've got another group of guys I want you to go say hi to. They're in this grove. And I say this grove, basically this patch of woods. And what you'll have these different type of groves in the middle of these Afghan villages, and it'll be a row of trees, several rows of trees. They intentionally are growing, obviously, and they'll mark their grove with like a knee-high brick wall. So it might be a football-sized field. It might be like the size like half a football field. But they mark it with this brick wall on the outside, and everything inside is their trees that they're growing, whatever plants they're trying to get from it. Now, I hate those things because There's a lot of places to hide. A lot of places they climb up into trees. They hide behind trees. Like it starts to get a little bit harder to find them. It's already a low loom night where it's not it's almost no moon at all. And now people don't really know this unless they live under nods. But when you're under nods, you have the illumination that the stars or moon is giving you, but you still have shade. Like if you had a porch with a long overhang, like when I'm under nods, wherever that light, that night light is coming from, there's a shadow there. Now I can still see in that shadow, but I can't see in that shadow as well as I could have when you were out under the out of the illumination of the starlight. So night vision isn't magic. It amplifies the light that is there. Even though darkness doesn't seem to have a little bit of light, like I said, those stars and everything is providing some sort of light. Now to the naked eye, it looks like no light. To night vision, it's illuminating the small amount of light that is there, and the less amount of light that's there is the less amount of light it has to illuminate, if that makes sense. So now when I start going into these shadowy groves of, under a low loom night, I now don't even have the little bit of light the stars were giving me. It's tough work. And that's okay. It's what we're built for. It's why we came here. We're the guys willing to do tough work. We get there, I can see them, and I can hear them. I can see them, and to be honest with you, a little bit lucky that we could see them hanging out under the, a little bit of inside the wall, but on the outskirts, hanging out underneath a tree. And there they are armed. This is 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So there's only one reason why guys with AKs hang out at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning underneath, in a grove. Blackhawks just landed. They just ran away from the village. Like they're bad guys. So I have this plan. This is the beginning of my downfall. I have this plan that I'm gonna have everyone else stay there, and it's a pretty good distance between me and them. As far as like it's a wide open field. So we don't really have a lot of cover. They really have the advantage of cover. So I'm thinking like, how do I take away the advantage of cover? Of course, speed, surprise, violence of action is the motto we live by. But I have Afghans with me. If I'm having a hard time with my nods tonight because of how dark it is, these Afghans that don't have my state-of-the-art equipment are barely putting a foot in front of the other. So I devised this plan that, hey, you guys stay here, basically cover me. I'm gonna crawl up there. I'm gonna lay on my back, get right next to this wall. I'm gonna lay on my back. I'm gonna grab a grenade. I'm gonna cook it off. Grenade takes 4 or 5 seconds. I'm gonna cook off a couple seconds. I'm gonna throw it over the wall. They won't have any time to do anything about it. By the time it hits the ground, it'll explode. I'll pop up, get on my feet, Inglourious Bastard style, finish him off. I'm sitting here getting ready to deploy this grenade, giddy. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. Like it's on ISR. Like the fireside story after this is gonna be a good one. And as I'm getting ready to throw this grenade, a massive, probably what sounded a lot like on my 40 miler, a massive oomph hits about 20, 30 meters away from me. And it's an Afghan who was still trying to walk, which I told him not to walk. And this particular was like a little, kind of a little bit farm field. So it has the rows. He trips on a row and he lands on his face in the middle of the night and sets off. Now everyone knows we're here. Because they hear someone fall in the middle of the night, and they turn, and they just start laying down suppressive fire. How none of those guys got hit? We're talking about 4 or 5 guys all laying down full auto AKs in the darkness their way. How no one got hit is beyond me. And And now they don't know that where I'm at. And they took a tactical defensive position, or at this point, really, they're offensive, and they kneeled behind this brick wall, and they're shooting right over it. I'm watching their guns, like they're the fire, the burst of the muzzle blast is right in front of them. I'm watching it, front row seat. You can feel the overpressure of it just hitting your head, just pow, pow, pow. And to be honest, I'm not really scared. I'm like, I'm more just disappointed that this didn't go the way I thought this was going to go. And I thought about trying to salvage it and still throw the grenade that I have with the pin out in my hand. I'm like, can I salvage this? I'm like, man, well, now I've lost speed, surprise, and surprise for sure. So I can't just like throw it over now. Like now they'll know where I'm at. So I basically just have to sit here and accept this, and they'll go away here. And as soon as they run out of ammo, or or have to change a mag, they'll run away. It's what they normally do. And that's what they did. Now, as soon as I could hear some feet, running, as soon as I heard I jumped up and threw a grenade and tried to make the best of my situation. I'm guessing I threw that grenade 300-400 yards, and but it just didn't hit them.
Want to watch me throw this grenade over them mountains?
They trust me. They ran much farther than I could throw that grenade. As far as I could truly throw a grenade, it did nothing to them. It got a live grenade out of my hand, and I threw a grenade out of frustration. Is really what ended up happening. I'm upset that my best plans have been foiled really by our own allies. I get on the radio and I was like, hey, followed them where they're going. And I'm be honest, I'm a little pissed. How dare you shoot guns in front of my face? You're gonna. Yeah, I want to kill these guys now. Like they shot at my friends. I was very, to be honest with you, upset. And so they were going to pay the price. And when they stopped running, I knew how far they went and where they stopped running. And there is no hard rule of how far I can go when I'm chasing down these guys. But and we do a good job of this in the Delta Force. There's every situation is different. So I'm not going to tell you it's exact this far away. I don't know. There's so many variables. What's the terrain? Is there anyone else in the area? How many of them? How many are you? There's not. But I can tell you this: when it happened, when they stopped, and I did I checked the grid coordinates, I found out how far they were and how far away we already were from the main element. I knew it was too far, without at least calling back and say, "Hey, give me a couple more guys." But the truth is, it wasn't, that part wasn't overconfidence that got me. I didn't want to take anyone away from the assault. I felt like, chasing down these guys on the side is a side job, and the main element's the main element. And I will do my job with as little as I need to do it with, and not take away people from the main effort. So I did not want to ask for more people. I didn't want to take away from the main assault, which means what I should have done was say, hey, at least radio up, tell them this is what we got, this is our plans. Do you want to send me? Do you not want me to go out there? This is a little further than we normally go. I didn't know that. I bypassed it and went to go kill people. And I knew I was hanging it out there, but guess what? I'm running a clean slate. Everyone else on my team has a Purple Heart, not me. And I'm not looking for a Purple Heart. I believe my aggressiveness and my problem solving and everything that I've done in the past, even though it's put me in some hairy situations, I've always come out on top. I had no reason to believe tonight would be any different. Me and my gang of merry men go to the take a long stroll to where these guys are hiding. Now, there are unfortunate parts of this story where I don't normally, I guess, say this, but there's some technical aspects that I just don't I just don't talk about. So some things were out of my control that I'd love to say makes me feel better. That hey, if things had gone the way they were supposed to go, which of course if everything goes the way it's supposed to go, you never have any problems. It wasn't completely my fault. There were some things that shouldn't have happened. So we lost radio communication with the main element, and I lost radio communication with the people that were telling me where the bad guys were. And now I'm walking in the blind. And I depend on that information for how I do my job.
Yeah, they're walking you in, right?
They're walking me in. I depend on that. And I no longer have that. And now, which is no big deal. We're gonna, technology at the end of the day is, I should say it's no big deal. Of course it's a big deal. It's not time to cut and run though. Technology is just an enhancement onto what we're already capable of. I don't need a GPS. Give me a map and compass. I'll prefer a GPS. I'd be more efficient. I can get the job done with whatever tools you give me. Those were the tools I was given that night. Was no commo at this time. So we start looking for where they are. We know we're close to the vicinity because last time we talked to them, we knew we're within a certain distance of them. So we knew we were close. But now it's not up to us to find them. And so we're looking and looking and looking. It's a rainy night. It's a low loom night, which I already talked about. It's an overcast night. It's a very windy night. I asked the dog. I say, "Hey, it's showtime. Dog, bring up your dog." There's this best way I can describe it, like a bombshell depression, about half the size of this room. If this was sunk and into the ground with filled with rocks, is what it was. And he makes a loop around it, comes back, and he's like, "Dog didn't hit on anything." But he goes, "But Brown, be honest with you, tonight in these conditions, I wouldn't count on the dog." I said, "That's all right." And again, I don't need. He's an enhancement tool. I don't need him. Sure would have been nice. But I'm going to come approach this hole as if there's armed men in this hole, regardless. Which is what we tried to do. It was what we did. I came up to this depression. I'm looking at it with my nods. I'm looking, but because of the low loom night, the fog in my nods, I'm looking, and I can't tell if there's bodies down there or just rocks or what's down there. And you can see me looking and interrogating this for a while, and I come back, and we are getting bits and pieces of commo on certain commo equipment, and we get told, "Hey, we're just picking up other chatter." It says, "Hey, the helos either need to go back and refuel, or you need to come back to the helos in 30 minutes. So, but if you're going to be longer than 30 minutes, we gotta go back to refuel." And so the assault force comes back. It's like, "Well, I don't want to be 30 minutes. Is kind of too short, but we don't want to wait for you to fly all the way back to base, refuel, and come back. So we'll make it. We'll be there in 30 minutes." So now we know we're on a time clock. I also know it took us about 30 to 40 minutes to walk this far. So now I know we have to make a decision. Are we going to just play it safe and be like, "Well, I don't know where they're at. We haven't got jackpot yet." So that's another factor. We're going to play it safe, go back to the helos, and basically be like, "Hey, where were you guys?" We're just over there. No harm, no foul. Get on the helo, go back, live to save another day. Or what's the call? So we hadn't had jackpot yet. I had a couple decisions to make. I could throw a grenade down on that hole, and I don't know if anyone's down there. But if I'm wrong, I've also shown everyone our location. So I didn't want to do that. I could have thrown a flashbang down there, but it'd given me the same result without any lethal effects, except just pissing them off down there. So the best of all the bad ideas I felt like I had, so this is what I'm going to do. It's called a white light blip, which is there's just a quick press on my white light button, just to give it a quick white light look. I'll look underneath my nods. I'll finally be able to know for certain. My spidey senses just wouldn't let it go. I just felt like I didn't like not truly knowing what was down there. And so my rationale was, if I can do a quick white light blip, even if I'm wrong and there's just nothing but rocks down there, even if someone else was, on the other side of that wall and not looking, because it's light and not sound and it's real quick, they may not have known it ever happened. And when there's nothing there, we'll move out. By the time they think that was the last time they saw a white light, we'll be in a different position. It's a call I made. I live with that call, and I stand by that call. And again, that call actually should have worked out if everybody did their job. But these are the variables, again, you play with. Not everything goes according to schedule or according to your plan. So I line up the Afghans with me, and I put them online. I go to do a white light blip. I look underneath my nod to do a white light blip. And there they are, plain as day. What looks like a depression full of rocks is full of rocks and 4 guys hiding underneath blankets that look like rocks, and they look like extension of rocks. There's no way we could have told. There's no way we could have known in that particular environment. So I go back. I actually turn my white light off for a second as I go to turn away and go, just like I thought, no one there. And in my mind, I kind of replayed exactly what I saw. And I come back on target going, holy shit, there they are. Get the fuckers. I keep my white light on. I start filling in one of the guys that's completely underneath. They're all completely underneath their blankets hiding. So I fill them up with like 6, 7, 8 rounds. And I go to transition to the next guy. And as I transition to the next guy, he's kind of looking out of his. I have a suppressed weapon, but he can hear. I'm sure he can hear his buddy making grunts and the thuds of lead hitting flesh. I'm sure it doesn't. And now there's a white light hitting him that I'm sure he can see through those blankets. There's a lot of indicators that something's amiss, and he decides to peer out from underneath his blanket, and I transition over to him. And I start shooting him. I shoot him 6, 7 times. I look over to the next guy. It's time to transition to the next guy. The next guy actually they all have their AKs end up right there across their chest as they're hiding. He's almost completely out of his blanket, and he's reaching for his gun that's across his waist. And I give him the good news, just like I gave the good news to his 2 friends. And 6, 7 rounds. All this is happening quick. Boom, 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 boom. Real quick. I get done with that. I mean, I'm not processing any obvious questions you may have, like, what's everyone else doing at this time? And I go to transition to the next guy, and every guy was in sequence a little closer to getting their gun on me than I was them, under their blanket, now looking out of their blanket completely off, grabbing his gun. Final guy on his knee, gun, bringing his gun up, and I'm looking at him. Now, usually pretty much what I would do is, like, when I'm done with you, I transition my eyes first and I drive my eyes to my gun. I don't live in my gun like that. It's a quicker way of transitioning and doing business, how professional shooters shoot. So when I decide this is enough for this guy, I send my last round, my eyes shoot over first, and I go to drive my gun. So I'm still taking the recoil from this last shot, looking at him, and my eyes drive there first, and I can see plain as day. This guy's a lot closer at shooting me than I am shooting him. And I remember giving myself a quick internal pep talk, shoot fast, shoot fast, shoot fast, get there. And I tried to drive my gun as soon as I could. He clicks the full auto. I get a couple rounds off at him. He shoots from the hip, zippers straight up. Couple rounds hit at my feet. One round basically breaks my arm in half, direct hit through my bones, and the last round, as it spins me, shoots, goes right between my panos, breaks my nods in half. Now they're on a bungee cord, basically double secured to my helmet, and so now they're dangling basically on the sides of my head, each half of my nods, and I spin around and I land in the mud, and I remember going, "Damn, he shot me. This sucks." It didn't hurt as bad as I thought, and I didn't know honestly where I was shot yet, and I was trying to get my arm back in my gun and get back in the fight, but every time I moved my arm, it was my arm was not having it. Like I couldn't move my finger, I couldn't move anything now trying to move was excruciating pain. Well, just sitting there, it didn't hurt that bad, and I quickly remember what it felt like getting it hit. Kind of felt like someone hit you in the forearm with a shovel. I mean, don't get me wrong, it didn't feel great, but I just remember thinking to myself, kind of rating the pain scale, and I was like, well, I think I'm shot in the arm. And again, I don't know what anyone's doing around me at this time, but I know, whether they saw it or not, I'm sure they did. Someone needs to know I've been shot. I remember asking, or tell myself, let them know you've been shot, so create some communications, so someone can fill in the gap, of where you were operating. Someone needs to know that I'm not covering you guys anymore. So that needs to be put out, but it needs to be put out in a way that you don't sound like a bitch and they don't make fun of you in the team room for the rest of your career. And if you think for a second that didn't cross my mind, bleeding out in the mud in Afghanistan, I unfortunately have to tell you that was exactly what crossed my mind. And I was, hey, I've been shot. And as soon as I say that, our commo guy comes up, throws a grenade in that depression. Well, what we'd found out throughout this whole, really, especially during this particular deployment, was every time we introduced grenades, we got a grenade back. It wasn't our own grenades. Our grenades exploded. But grenades don't, it's not the movies. Grenades don't kill people and people go flying 20 feet in the air and now they don't have legs. Grenades, they damage you. They piss you off more than they do kill you. And they're really more of a maiming thing. And if you're in a small area, that's much better. But when you're out in the open, the overpressure of the grenade gets to dissipate out in the open air. And a grenade's frag pattern actually isn't as universal and uniform as you would hope it to be. So sometimes you get a lot of fragmentation that way with only a little bit that way. So you may not even hit the guy as much as he should have been hit, so to speak. We know that because we did extensive grenade testing after this deployment, and this is one of the reasons. And we actually ended up coming out with a new advanced grenade that had a higher charge and it had a better dispersion pattern because of this deployment. I don't think I've ever told anyone that. Well, fun fact for you.
I think that's fun.
There you go.
Frag grenade?
Yeah, frag grenade. Yeah. So so he comes up, throws a grenade in the hole. This particular one may not be all the answers that I said of why grenades don't work. Could have been a very easy example of why this grenade didn't work in this hole. It's full of rocks, and if this is a rock and this grenade lands here, the rock is it's a great cover, for a grenade. So grenade goes off. We're all kind of waiting in quiet. And as we're waiting in quiet, hoping that the grenade did its job, I'm still sitting there, laying on my back, I'm actually trying to maneuver my gun with my left arm, the arm I can have, get it off my arm, trying to go for my pistol. So I'm trying to work this situation I've been given here in these few seconds. And then I hear a loud thunk in the mud. It sounds, I don't know a better way to describe it. You've never heard one. Before this, I've never heard one. But exactly what you think a grenade landing in the mud would sound like is what this thing sounded like. And I remember getting real tight and getting ready for the explosion. And I felt like I was there for a couple seconds, and it never went off. And I remember going, you think you know what a grenade sounds like in the middle of the night, Brent? You ever heard one? No, you idiot. Why don't you get up and fight for your life? It's just funny, some of the things like you how you treat yourself in these situations. And I go, you're right. I should probably get up. And I go to get up, and about that time, maybe a Russian 5 seconds is different than American 5 seconds. It goes off eventually, right as I'm starting to get up, and it peppers me good. Shrapnel all in my right leg, my right buttocks, and my face. It blows my peltors off. It just gets me good. In my right arm, what was bone fragment and even bullet fragment is now grenade fragment on top of that. So I was unlucky enough to get shot and then get hit by a grenade shortly after that. He throws this grenade and he uses this as a diversion, if you will, to now crawl out of this hole and book it. And luckily, the one of the guys who were with me guns him down and many times, and finally what was really a very short fight for there was now over, but it came at a lot of consequences. We have the injuries that I sustained, and our combo guy Frank took a through and through round to the leg, and so now we only came out with 4 Americans. 2 were shot up, and the Afghans clearly are of no help, because let me tell you what the Afghans were doing that whole time. When I'm going 1 on 4 people, all you had to do, we're in a line. We were in a line, arms width apart. 4 of us, 4 of them. I took out 3 of them. I was on the way to taking out the 4th too. All they had to do was shoot each of them. Shoot one, shoot any of them. Help out, do your job. They didn't fire off 1 round. They came to visit me in the hospital, these Afghans, with a Turk, believe it or not. And they were like, hey, they want to know how you're doing. I'm doing good. Now, knowing that I'm about to get sent home over this, and I got a bunch of surgeries in my future, thanks to these guys. A part of me wanted to give them the what for, but I also know that, my teammates had to work with these guys. So there's no reason in creating bad karma between them. So I said, hey, I just gotta know, like, last night when I got shot, like, did you see me shooting? And like, oh yeah, we saw you shooting. And I'm like, okay, did you see who I was shooting at? Like, yeah. Like, and you almost had him too. It was close. And I'm like, yeah. Why didn't you help? Why didn't you shoot anyone? And they said, we thought you had it. That was the answer to me in the hospital. Thought you had it. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to be the biggest hero I could be that night. But you could have helped out a little bit. And anyway, that's jumping ahead to the hospital and what were the Afghans doing this whole time. We were far from out of the woods. We now have half of our patrol shot up. We've been in exchanges of fire and 4 different locations that night. The village is we've been there a little bit. The village is getting uppity. And we wandered way too far, and now we got to limp it back to the main element. The main element doesn't really know what's happening because our comms have been compromised. So our commo guy, Frank, who shot in the leg, does have a piece of commo that's more powerful, has a higher wattage, not a secret, just a higher wattage than others, and is able to kind of make sporadic commo with it. And he's relaying back, hey, we got 2 people shot. We're in a bad way. We're trying to make ourselves to your location. Be prepared to receive the wounded. Brent's in a bad way. I'll give you more. The message they received was broken and somehow got relayed as, hey, be prepared. Brent's shot in the face. We're coming. And Or in fact, no, I'm sorry. I said eagle. He just used the word eagle. Eagle shot in the face, and we're coming. They put this word out to the troop, like, hey guys, get ready to go. We might have to go at any moment now. We got an eagle shot. We think he's shot in the face, so get ready. And Josh starts going, no, damn it, Brent's been shot in the face. Now, granted, that one helicopter that happened with me and Josh, there's three helicopters, and most people didn't even see that interaction between me and Josh. Half the people on the helicopter didn't see the interaction between me and Josh. I can tell you, helicopters are loud, Even when they're spinning down, they're still loud. Most people didn't even know what happened between me and Josh. And Josh is over there kicking rocks, yelling, Brent's been shot in the face. And like, Josh, settle down. We don't know Brent's been shot in the face. He goes, I know Brent was shot in the face. And I was like, how do you know Brent was shot in the face? He was like, because he was messing with me. And before we left, I said, I hope you get shot. And the whole assault troop is like, jumps on him. Why would you say that? Did you seriously say that to Brent? Like, that is so messed up. You said, I hope you get shot. He's like, I know. I shouldn't have said it. I didn't think it happened. They're all gagging on. Why would you say that? What's wrong with you, Josh? Wish I'd have known this as I hobbled in my state of because it'll put a smile on my face knowing that Josh was getting a hard time for this. Instead, we're licking our wounds, trying to, I'm the point man. I'm the compass. Yeah, I'm the guy who got us there. I'm the guy that's supposed to get us back. And now we got a guy who doesn't normally do that, more than competent to do it though, is trying to get. I also don't have nods. One of the darkest nights to ever not have nods for. So I can't even see where I'm going. It's so dark. I have to hold on to the guy in front of me, or else I'll lose him. I can't see the guy in front of me. We're hopping over mud walls, trying to get places. I have an arm that's literally dangling. I'm slipping, I'm sliding in the mud, I'm landing on my arm. Every time I land on my arm, I feel like I just want to cut it off. They put a tourniquet, rightfully so, on my arm. Hurt 10 times worse than getting shot is living with a tourniquet for 45 minutes to an hour. It took us almost an hour to get back to the main element. I ate all the fentanyl lollipops in the patrol that I could. I wanted them all. Even Frank, who had been shot, I asked him how he was doing. Frank's an absolute stud of a man. He goes, I'm good, Brent. I said, oh, you good? I'm good. All right, can I have your fentanyl lollipop?
You gonna eat that?
You can eat that? He goes, oh, yeah, you can have it. Thanks, Frank, because these other three didn't help. And I know we're getting close. And I start telling them, I was like, hey, I don't know what's wrong with me, guys, but I know something's not right. Something's not right. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I think I'm going to black out. And I'm 25 pounds heavier, at this point in my life. And now I'm in kit, and the other biggest guy in the patrol is shot in the leg, which is Frank. And but it's okay. Frank didn't do a lot of legs anyway, so he wouldn't have been a lot of help. And it's for you, Frank. And they're like, Brent, for the love of God, do not pass out. Like we're in a bad enough way. Like we can't be carrying you on top of this. And I appreciate the request. I kind of let them know it's not really up to me, guys. I'm just letting you know that. So when I pass out and you guys continue to walk, because we can't see each other. Of course, I can't see them. Everyone else still has nods. But they're like, we'll stop for a second, drink some water, and when you feel like you can move again, move. Well, what I didn't know was happening was we were obviously we're hurt. We're shot up. We need to get back to the main element. We addressed my major gunshot wound that I was losing most of my blood at, and a lot of blood for a little bit of time. But the tourniquet, without it, did its job, stopped the bleeding. And what we didn't do was do a good enough job of assessing all the grenade fragments, the 20 or so, grenade fragments. That none of them were major or hit like a major artery, so to speak. But you get blood oozing out of 20 different places in your body over a period of time, and you've already lost a lot of blood from a catastrophic injury. I was low on blood, and I was slowly bleeding out and didn't even know it. basically. I was going into shock, and that's why I was about to throw up and pass out. I finally, after just a little bit of a break and some water, I was like, all right, let's make one final push, and because I feel a little better right now, let's make the most of this, and let's before you start carrying me. And we've moved as fast as we could. We finally linked up to the main element. Our medic, who's as cool as a medic as you'll ever meet, looks at me and goes, "How's your night, Brent?" And now there's some white light on us. Everyone's kind of assessing everyone. We're in a secure place now that we feel like we've done a good job of with security. He said, "How's your night, Brent?" Been a tough night. And he goes, "Sounds like it." And he goes, "Why are you limping?" I said, "I wouldn't worry about my leg. I've been shot in the arm, and this tourniquet hurts like you wouldn't believe." He goes, "Oh, I believe how much that hurts. Why would a shot arm cause you to limp, though, Brent?" I said, "Dan, I been falling a lot, and I think I fell on it wrong. I don't know. You want to look at my arm?" He goes, "We'll take a look at." And he's like, "Well, yeah." And as he's telling me, he's looking, he's doing things, and he goes, "Let's take a look." And he cuts off my pant leg, and he puts a thumb in a grenade hole in my leg. Oh, he goes, why are you bleeding from your leg, Brent?" I said, "Well, Dad, because that's how gravity works. It falls from my arm and it hits my leg." And it is a little bit of an ironic conversation that that we're just having this banter back and forth. And that's when he cuts open my leg, puts messes with my grenade hole in my leg, and goes, "Did something else happen to you, Brent?" And I was like, "Ow, that hurts." He goes, "Yeah, I got hit by a grenade too." He goes, "Oh, didn't want to mention that, huh? I know you got hit by a grenade. And you didn't check yourself out completely, did you? Because you're only worried about your arm." And I was like, that's a fair assessment, Dan. So we have that odd witty exchange back and forth. And while we're talking, I can hear the thump of Blackhawk blades just off in the near distance. And I do remember walking, going, "Man, when you get those Blackhawks back here, because now we've busted the time window. It's like, when you get those Blackhawks back here, because I'm not doing well." And excuse me. And the Blackhawks did was probably one of the coolest, at least personally to me and my family, was they know two guys had been shot up. And they knew going back to base would take more time than they were willing to gamble with. They didn't know how bad we were hurt. They didn't know how long it'd take us to get there. But they knew if they needed us and they went back to base, they wouldn't be there for us. So the 160th guys put down a multi-million-dollar piece of machinery that they pretty much had no authorization to do in the middle of Afghanistan, in an area that's had several firefights going on throughout the night, and a call for enemy QRF to come together and kick these bearded infidels out of our village, which never happened, but they always threaten that. They could have let any of those things, deter them from land. They literally just landed on the ground and sat there because they knew the boys needed them, and it saved my life. They loaded me up in that helicopter, and they pushed that. The last thing I remember before I passed out was they pushed that helicopter. I don't pretend to be a pilot, but at a percentage of horsepower. They normally say somewhere 90-95%. They were pushing the percentage of that thrust so hard that the helicopter was shaking. I mean, it was shaking like it was being pushed to its ragged edge. This is what they were doing. And so I'll just the guys putting it on the line for the guys, I normally get through this story without this. Sorry.
Don't be sorry, man.
Those 160th pilots are the best. God, they're the best. My teammates were the best. Those guys, when I was at the hospital, asked them to. I went into surgery that night, Some of my bigger problems were going to be infection from from uh, from wallowing in the mud. We do have an antibacterial pill that definitely helped, but I got a lot of crap in my body in a lot of different places. So infection became a serious concern. Trying to put my arm together became, obviously a secondary effect. The shrapnel in my knee that originally wasn't a problem got worse and worse and worse. My knee ballooned up and I couldn't move my leg. Um, and they knew they needed to move me from Bagram to Germany to a higher level of care in order to try to save me. And I asked, I say, hey, the pilot's going to come in and say hi to me. I really want to talk to those guys. They it's like, nah, we're just, hey, they said they'd come in, but they're just doing their job. Nothing really to talk to you about. They weren't being, disrespectful by any means. They just, what's there to go talk to this guy about? Doing my job. I'd do it for anyone. I said, man, I'd I'd really like if they come in and said hi to me. Just want to thank them. So had a had newborn twins at the time. Had three little girls at the time. And of course, I can go back. There are things I could have done better. Things just weren't um, things just weren't in the cards for me. To be honest with you, I don't really think about it a whole lot, other than it. Funny, same thing we talked about with my son's flag football team. Hey, you can either be upset about it, and I was upset about it. I felt like I failed. I had personally never been pushed back off target. I had never been shot. I had never been a failure point. I had never, I'm always, pride myself as value added. You put me on target, I'm value added. I'm not, I don't make mistakes. I only, I'm who you want. And tonight I get shot again. We can go round and round about this. Who was right? What you could have done? It wasn't your fault. Was your fault? Doesn't matter. It happened. So how do I get better from this? And I do know um, I was getting more and more audacious with my tactics, and I'd push it further and further out, and I'd get closer and closer, and it always worked out for me. Well, tonight it didn't, and that's the dangerous game you play. And I got a good reset, and little did I know, the worst was yet to come with ISIS and Syria, and I don't think I would have made it, in ISIS with against ISIS and in Syria with all the different all the different IEDs and tactics that they brought to bear in creative ways. And if I had just continued to push my luck, it would have ran out.
Man, that's awesome to hear about those 160th guys.
Yeah, surprised me. I'd never seen them do that.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. That's a great story. When you say that you got audacious, and you said before, I think it was probably along the same lines. You were aggressive and you put yourself in situations where you got to kill somebody that somebody else didn't because they weren't willing to do those things, which is not right or wrong. It's
Right.
just the fact that you were aggressive. What comes to mind when you think about that was a close one, that was a hairy one?
Um, let me think of a gosh. Let me think of a good example of tactical patience versus let's just get it over with. Um, trying to think of ones I can or should talk about. There's some I don't like talking about vehicle interdiction stuff. Uh, because vehicle interdiction is something we don't talk about. It's not like it's an open secret, but like I said, I don't like. I know they even talk about vehicle interdiction stuff in Black Hawk Down. But people don't realize how much we pull people out of their cars instead of out of their homes. That's the first one I really want to think about is that one.
We can come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Do you know Jeff Teagues?
I know of him. He was a little bit before me, but he was in the same squadron. And he's gone on to do really good things post military as well.
Yeah. I know he started. I think it's called Skull Games, anti-sex trafficking organization.
And he
I think
had
it's a
one before
nonprofit.
that, and I can't remember the name of the one he had before that. But yeah, he's been a part of he's been in that game for a long time, ever since he got out.
Yeah, the only reason I ask, I would love to have him on, but he talked a little bit about vehicle interdiction, and it just reminded me of something you said before, like with the OTC situation. Like I'd sit in the hot seat, like I trust those guys
Yeah.
with that shot placement, and he told a story of vehicle interdiction work, and it was basically they were in a helicopter, and it was basically can you shoot around the kids in the car moment, and just I don't want to tell his story, but
Yeah.
just
I can think of a few moments in the VI like that. And what's crazy is these kids taking these people taking these kids as human shields. That's their parents. That's who's doing this. It's their parents taking their own kids as human shields when they're done doing terrorist activities and the Americans show up. And I've seen that on, handful of occasions. And you want to talk about the difference between the difference between the two sides. I couldn't imagine any of us ever doing that. Yet in this terrorist mind, that's his go-to tactic. Let me put my kid right in front of between me and the threat. Unfortunately, that's still a pretty easy shot for a Delta Force operator moving from a helicopter into a vehicle with a kid, with holding his kid right in front of him. They'll make that shot 10 times out of 10 times. And I've seen them make that shot 100% of the time. And I hate it for the kid. And I think about it for about 2 seconds. And then I got to move on with my job.
were you were an assaulter at the time when you got shot in 2014. Were you carrying a 416?
Was.
What'd you think of that gun?
Loved it. Loved it. We had a little bit of issues with that gun right off the bat, paired up with suppressors, but our armories, figured out what was keeping it from cycling properly. And as soon as they figured that out, it was working just fine without a suppressor. And then we put the suppressor on, had a little bit of issues. Best armors in the world, working for the best people in the world. They got to it, figured it out. Never had a problem with that gun ever since then. Loved that gun. Loved it.
I mean, where I was going with that is I think it might be surprising to people, when you're making your transitions to the guys in the ditch, you're giving them, 6-8 rounds each. And that's a 5.56 gun. I'm sure you guys maybe use some special loads. Maybe they're a little hotter, and maybe they're like a self-defense round where they do something on impact.
Right. We're not using green tip.
Yeah. Well, there's no real use in that, I guess, right?
No.
Well, some use, but
Right. Yeah, some use. Not
Yeah.
a great hostage rescue round.
right. So, that was surprising to me. And was there a time that you guys, like maybe you were doing transition drills at one point and you did it a certain way, and then you realized, okay, you need to shoot somebody until they're down and not move from one target to the next and back and forth and back and forth.
That was a lesson learned in the surge of Iraq in Special Forces. Special Forces learned that hard lesson, speaking of green tip, who does use green tip. And what was going on is SFAUC, Special Forces Advanced Urban Combat, is a school Green Berets go to. And Green Berets getting a lot of action in Afghanistan, going on target night after night, getting a lot of work in. But in these schools you go to save paper, to save ammo, in order to properly score people, you get 2 rounds. 2 rounds there to the next target, 2 rounds to the next target, 2 rounds. That's the standard evaluating and amount of rounds to send to someone. Well, the problem is it's a lot of 90s tactics, and 2, it's a schoolhouse tactic meant for a particular reason. And when you build in that muscle memory, even on up drills on the range, up 2 rounds, boom, boom, down. Up 2 rounds, boom, boom, down. We had put in thousands and thousands of repetitions of 2 rounds to a bad guy. Well, what that did was train Green Berets to shoot bad guys twice. Bad guys get 2 rounds. It's all they've ever trained on. And so what we found out during that time is that's schoolhouse and that's the Falcon, and that's not reality. And combat is you shoot people until they stop moving, until they're no longer a threat. I'll say this other thing about Green Tip that we learned, and learn more so with the unit. You're always looking at caliber and what's the best, what's a good round, what's not a good round. At the end of the day, you'll hear stories like, oh, I shot that guy 8 times with Green Tip and he never fell. Round placement is still king. I don't care if you're shooting a 22. You put that 22 round where it's supposed to go, you're going to put people down. So, yes, the Green Tip is not a great lethal round because for good reason. It's made to push through, it has that steel penetrator, to push through car doors, to penetrate through certain things, and it'll shoot through a body like a dart. But put in the right place, it's a very lethal round.
Was there ever a question of being able to operate again?
Fleeting moments. There were times where I couldn't bend my arm. My arm was super weak. My only doubt was can I get back to my strength, and if I could get back to doing physically what I used to be able to do, there was no doubt that I wanted to get back in the game. And as soon as I know it sounds a little bit crazy. I'm gonna show you something I honestly at one point thought I'd never do again. I know it seems a little crazy, but I couldn't bend my arm like that for a long time. And I hope she's watching this. My physical therapist was an absolute savage and seemed to not care at all how much pain she inflicted on me. And she made me cry almost every day that we did physical therapy in those first couple months. She made me cry. And it wasn't like a cry like, oh, I'll never be the same. It hurt so bad. I would tear up. Like, it was immense pain. And it got to the point eventually she started crying and apologizing. She's like, hey, I'm sorry. I have to do this to you. And I know it's going to hurt. And I would put my hand over my face like this because I didn't want to show anyone or show her that I was crying, that anything hurt. And she'd do it. And, and tears would roll down my cheek. And she'd be like, I see you crying, Brent. I was like, no, I'm not.
No, you don't.
It was horrible. And she showed me one day, she's, I'm gonna get you to do this. And I was like, and I couldn't bend my arm. I was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again. She goes, you'll be able to do that again. I promise you. I'm gonna work with you until you do that again. And that sounds like the weirdest thing to be proud of or to work towards. It's not like curling 60 pounds. But it was a movement that I honestly didn't see my arm doing again. And God, did it take a lot of tears and a lot of pain, and just day in and day out and day in of physical therapy. But in some days, it's like, hey, you want to stop and rest? We don't have to go tomorrow. No, I'll be here tomorrow. I felt like I was training up for selection all over again, just a man possessed. No, I'll be here tomorrow. I tried to sneak back on a plane to go back to Afghanistan that same trip. So I got shot. I forgot. Sometimes I forget about stories. So I've been working with her for a few months now, and I still can't fully bend my arm. And there's a massive gap of bone in my ulna bone, and they're hoping that it's going to connect. But right now, I have a massive plate in my arm keeping it together. So I can't bend my arm completely anywhere near complete. My bones aren't completely together. I have a plate in my arm keeping my arm together. And now we're like 2 months later. There's only like a month left in the deployment. Well, however long has gone by. And I call one of the guys. I said, "Hey, come back over." He goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you good?" I said, "I'm good enough to come back over," because I didn't want I didn't want that to be my, I couldn't wait to get back over and get back on target and prove, nope, that's not me. I need to get this next mission out of the way. And I don't want to wait a year, however long it was, to get back on target. I wanted to get back on target right now. And so I put myself on a rotator flight, and I called ahead and said, "Hey, this is what time I'm coming in. I want you to come get me." Someone was scrubbing the manifest, and Teresa's her name. Goes over to Teresa and is like, "Teresa, is Brent okay? He's on the manifest to on the rotator to go overseas." He goes, "No, he's not." He goes, "Here it is. Brent's on the rotator to go overseas." She called the highest level of command that she had a friendship with in our command, and said, "I did not clear Brent to go overseas. Brent cannot go overseas. Brent will not go overseas if I have anything to do with it." And I was literally packing up my bag and putting it on a truck to go. And some guys come running out into the squadron bay, and they're like, "Brent, where are you going?" I said, "Nowhere." He goes, "Commander wants to see you." I said, "For what?" I'm going somewhere." He goes, "We think that's the problem." I ended up calling ahead to my squad, to my troop overseas, and saying, "Hey, I'm on the rotator. They won't let me come over," like to my troop command. And they're like, "Yeah, we don't want you coming over either." Like, no, you can't come back over. But secretly, told I would end up becoming good friends with both of them. They're like, "But you know what? If you just showed up without us knowing, that'd have been epic." I do wish I'd have got that one snuck by. But yeah, I tried to sneak back over. It didn't go over so well, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, that's what I want. You want your stallions to push and push and push, and it's your job to save them from themselves. And when I was the leader, that's exactly what I did to my guys. I expected them to never want to leave a deployment. I'd expect them to go on every deployment they absolutely could, every training exercise they absolutely could. And it was my job to tell you, "Aren't you still on profile? Isn't your leg still hurt from the Halo jump that we had a bad night landing on? No, you're not coming on this one." And for them to go, "No, Brent, I can go." And only for me to go, "That's awesome. Glad you could. And you'll be at home with your wife. See you when you get back." That's the way it should be.
So, Syria. I've heard you say that it was your most dangerous work that you did at the unit. What were you guys doing over there? What was the mission set, and why was it so dangerous?
There were two different mission sets we had. Kind of two phases of the war. There was the beginning phase, which was just dealing with ISIS, pushing back ISIS. You had to. I mean, they were an absolute force to be reckoned with. We, as the United States, allowed them to be that. Yes, there's the argument about you can't be the world's police, and we can't go. There's hundreds of terrorist organizations out there. You're just gonna go kill them all? No, that's a ridiculous statement. Just kill the ones that are cutting off Americans' heads, and let's just start with that. And when you start cutting off Americans' heads, you just go ahead and squash them then. But they cut off American head after American head, and they took over half of Syria, and they took over half of Iraq before the United States And I'll give credit where credit's due, and I'll give blame where blame's due. It's nothing political. Before Barack Obama said, you know what, maybe we should do something about this. And he put us in a bind. And he put us in a bind through a lack of decisions. He is a commander-in-chief. It is his decision. The same way I'll give him massive amounts of credits for taking on the UBL raid, which was not a 100% give me, going into a foreign country's sanctified airspace, invading that, and launching a mission to kill people and citizens in someone else's country that you're not at war with. That was a great call, and you get that. You get the good with the bad. ISIS happened on Obama's watch, and he should have done something about it once he started cutting Americans' heads off, and we could have easily done something about it. Now, it's a massive problem. One, massive problem. My job was to take care of the Syria problem, not necessarily the northern Iraq problem. That was another group and set of special operations that did it. It was easier for our regular special operations to operate inside of Iraq. Iraq was still even though the SOFA agreements had run out, it was still a war zone and a place that we had been operating at. Syria was another whole new country and a whole new problem set, and it was easier for to send us to be the offensive arm of the Syria part of that operation, and that's what we did. And I don't want to get into numbers. Numbers are always sketchy, but I can assure you, the only people doing offensive operations over there were us, and it would absolutely astonish you how few of us there were doing those offensive operations. And we, with the help of the Kurds were a great partner for us. And with the help of air superiority and a few Delta Force operators and the Kurds, we pushed ISIS all the way back to Raqqa, and then we absolutely leveled Raqqa. And then we turned into phase 2 of the operation, which was going and hunting down bad guys who said basically just because they put down their weapons, they're like, oh, never mind, we're not ISIS. Yeah, you are. And that was some of my more enjoyable work. And the amount of ISIS back to phase 1, pushing them back to Raqqa and leveling Raqqa, the amount of IEDs that they brought to the table and left behind when they unasked an area, when we finally pushed them back. You think you've seen IEDs in Iraq, you think you've seen IEDs in Syria and in Afghanistan. You haven't seen IEDs until you go to Syria and you see the amount of IEDs ISIS can leave behind and the creative ways they can do it. I never worried about IEDs. I'll be honest with you. I've ran over a couple IEDs. I've survived a couple IEDs. Lost some guys to IEDs. It just wasn't something I worried about. It was either going to happen or wasn't going to happen. Can't drive around all day wondering, is it going to happen now? Is it going to happen now? Rarely happened. Like anything else, it was a possibility of war. When ISIS unasked a village and it was our turn to take over that village as we kept on pushing them back, you tiptoed around that place like everything underneath your feet could blow up because it could. Sure. It was insane, the amount of... I don't know where they got them all from. It was insane.
What kind of enemy was ISIS relative to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda?
They were all evil, but there are levels of evil. And ISIS takes the cake. They are what they did with kids and training kids and burning people alive and beheading, American citizens. There's a tinge of that to every one of those, but none of them reached the level of what ISIS did, and their fanaticism with Islam and the way of which they carried it out, thinking they were just the whole time, and it's not just as if they were commanded by God to do these things. It was just insanity to watch videos of 7-year-old little boys carry an AK through a house, a mock-up house, with a tied-up Kurdish prisoner at the end to clear it like it was a training target is what it was, and treating him like he was a paper target. The way we would treat paper targets is the way they'd train these boys to run through houses and shoot targets on real Kurdish hogtied prisoners. It was they were different. They were a different type of evil, and I enjoyed every single one of them we killed. Every single one of them deserved it, and one of those few instances. I don't care how it sounds. I wish we'd have killed more. As long as there's one ISIS person running around that was attached to what happened in Syria, I hope the Delta Force still has targets to hit. I mean that.
I think you should. Personally, that's just my opinion. That I try not to interject on these things, but
Yeah. I'll tell you why PTSD isn't as big as an issue with you. Because some people look at it this way: it's like, how can you, like, human life is precious. You know, how can you take a human's life? All human life has value. I disagree. I almost said I respectfully disagree, but I don't. I just disagree. You know, I viewed them as two-legged dogs, and I was just hunting. I was hunting two-legged dogs, and I didn't view it that way. You know, right, wrong, or different. Say what you want about me. That's how I view it. And speaking, I don't think I've brought up Bill as much as I have this interview. Let me tell you another piece of sage advice Bill gave me besides the dead woman in Afghanistan, my first mission, was talk about dead kids eventually. And he goes, I know it sounds like dark humor, but it's not funny, but it's true. A dead child laying on the ground on target, and he says, "Hey, Brent, baby rats don't grow up to be beautiful little bunnies." And you can not like that saying, and you can think that everyone deserves a chance at life, but man, there's a lot of truth of that. Like, at some point, that's what they've been raised in. That's what they're going to grow up to be. And don't even start. Are you advocating with killing children? Never pulled the trigger on a child in my life. But they are the casualty of war at times. And I'll tell you what, I'll deal with it the way I have to. And whenever you're brave enough, whoever wants to be in the comment section to deal with it, you tell me how you deal with it. Until then, that's how I deal with it.
The one part that I will tell you that you're wrong on is I think you're a little generous calling them dogs, because dogs are fucking awesome. So rats is a more fitting description, I'd say. So I'm glad you brought that one up.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So was it more personal with ISIS, or were you still just a professional doing a job? And maybe weave into that question, did you enjoy killing those guys more because of who they were?
I wouldn't say there's always a level of it's personal. It varies, and I'll tell you why. When I was a Green Beret, a lot of things got personal because you collected the intel. You like that target. You carried that target from its inception until the very end. Whether you collecting the intel, executing that target, collecting SSC on that target, sending up, before you even get that, executing that target, writing the whole plan for that target to get authorization for, then executing it, then the SSC of it, and then the post-op production of it. You own that thing from cradle to grave. And so it always gets personal because as you're collecting the intel on this person, you really get to know what they've done wrong and what removing this guy will do. A lot of things got personal when you're on Nota DA. Some of them got really personal, to be honest with you. It got so personal. We hit a dry hole in a guy, and I hated him. God, I hated him. He was my job to collect intel, and he was my target set. We dry holed him, and I burned his house down because I hated him that much. I said, well, then you're not coming back to our house. I'm going to burn it down. That created a little bit of controversy between us and the commandos because there were some Qurans in that house. and they said, "Hey, if you want to burn a house down, can you just talk to us about it first, and we'll do it right." But see, it gets personal. Um, at a tier 1 level, it gets less personal at times because it's a quick turnaround. Here's the packet. This is tonight's guy. This is tonight's guy. No, if we get a chance to, which we don't always, but if we get a chance to find out what he's done, it gets personal. If he's a recidivist, fancy name for if he's been caught before and he's in a jumpsuit and people have already risked their life once to get this guy, and now we have to risk our life again to get him because the system decided to let him out. And I assure you, if he fell on our target radar, you screwed up. Like we just didn't catch you we just didn't catch you writing a nasty email. Yeah. You've done something when you fall on our radar. So to see a guy that we've captured before get let go, it gets personal when the level of risk that is in this job on these objectives, and now you got to go do it again. It gets personal. ISIS was personal for a different reason because of the amount of bad they have done and the amount of they really kind of took social media and YouTube and the internet. I think they did that more than anyone else. I'd have a hard time getting an argument against that, with the way they sensationalized their violence. It allowed us to watch a lot of videos of the things that they were doing and even promoting, even like Coptic Christians in Egypt, marching them out to the beach and then just murdering all of them, burning the Jordan pilot alive while he's still in a cage.
Yep.
Again, not taking these kids and turning them into senseless killers and murderers. What they do to women, beheading Americans. It made it very personal with ISIS that this is probably the worst we've seen, and they have got to be stopped with prejudice.
Yeah. So, you guys are working with the Brits over there.
Says who?
So, with the 22 SAS guys, to be more specific. And there was an operation where the SAS lost Matt Tenrow and the unit lost John Dunbar. Were you on that one?
I was.
Is that something that you want to talk about?
I don't talk about that one. Not, but I'll give you a reason. I think you'll understand why I don't talk about that one. That one, it just didn't end well, and it was but obviously there's more to that story. But John's son is somewhere out there. I'll never have John's son listen to me talk about anything that happened to his dad, other than his dad did not die in pain, died peaceful. The things that we endured after that is for us to endure, and I don't want. There's no reason for a son to hear about certain things like that. I'll tell you one thing that was definitely a surprise was I did a podcast. I think it was because of a New Zealand podcast I did, of all things. Someone asked me to do a random podcast. I said I would. They asked me about Matt Tunro out of the blue, and I haven't been asked about Matt Tunro before, but that and now this. And I got a odd WhatsApp phone call on my phone, and I answered it, and it was Matt Tunro's dad, and he had called me, and he said had gotten the cold shoulder from the British government, and he had never gotten any answers about what happened to his son, what his son was doing there, and he's a man, and he asked me as a man what happened to his son, and so as a dad, yeah, it wasn't a phone call, but if you want to ask me about it, I'll tell you about it, and told him what he wanted to know. I warned him. Sometimes careful what you want to know. Sometimes not knowing in details is better than knowing, because once you know, once you see it, once you smell it, once you experience it, I can push it down all I want. I'm not saying it doesn't work for me. It absolutely works for me. People will look at me like, "Oh, Brent, wow, you're still dealing with it." Well, if you want me to talk about it, I'm human. But as soon as we get done with this, I'll push it down. I'll go back to work. I deal with it just fine. But you know, in a weird way, I kind of would have preferred him to not know, to be honest with you, because the truth on that one was was an unpleasant truth. But that's the reason I'm talking about that one.
Yeah, fair enough. So you went to recce, or you were a sniper for the last 5 years of your unit time.
Yeah, recce's is still an assault troop, so you're still considered an assaulter. You just get no extra pay and extra responsibility for trying to be something else you're supposed to be the best in the world at. So, but I loved it, yeah, in an odd way. Recce is the more senior guys who are over in recce. We were sending recce to Syria, so I got to go to Syria back and forth because of recce. Recce was great, and oddly enough, 90% of everything I did in recce was all assault missions.
Hmm.
So it was a good time.
Did you have more fun as a sniper or an assaulter?
Oh gosh, if you're talking about the job itself, sniping or assaulting, no, nothing beats the adrenaline rush of hitting the target as an assaulter. But as a recce guy, I still had to do the assault mission, as an additional, basically a job title as a sniper. So I really enjoyed being a recce because I did just as much assault missions. But we could be used in a little bit in more unique ways, whether it be low vis reconnaissance, whether it be your traditional tactical reconnaissance roles, or it could be going out to do sniper work where no assaulters are coming out with it. It made you a little bit more, how do I say this? More of a Swiss Army knife, and I just want to get on target. And I just wanted to get on a helicopter and go. I just wanted to be on a mission. Any way, anyhow, I can get out there, get me out there. And recce allowed me more options to get out there and be on a mission.
Mhm.
That I did enjoy about it.
Did it feel more personal with those close quarter engagements, or through the glass?
Oh, it's always an adrenaline case. If you're, I don't care how fast you are, how you're doing it at night, snooping around at night, and you get them. At the end of the day, when you shoot someone in the same room, they were as close to killing you as you were them. They had just as ample opportunity, distance, the amount of training required, the equipment required to kill you, and it is a rush. At the end of the day, it could have gone different. Behind the glass, you got all day. It's a brain game. It's when you're behind the glass, it's how much did you prepare for this moment? Because you get one, sometimes, not always, but you got one shot, and everything that leads up to this moment is what you did beforehand. And are you ready for this moment? Are you capable of this environment and this wind, with this gun, at this distance, with this bullet, with this equipment, at this time to make this shot? And it's a whole nother type of satisfaction. And at the end of the day, I enjoyed both because of the result that it gave me. Not just arbitrarily killing men, the feeling of having tangible results of what you did mattered. And killing terrorists is a tangible result of removing people from this earth that want to do Americans harm. And I enjoyed it in any way I could.
So something you said before about not getting into specific numbers, but just the fact that there was a very small number of unit guys on the ground doing operations. So you say what you want about this one, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Battle of Kasham in Dar Azar, where a very small number of unit operators took out a much larger number of Russian Wagner Group mercenaries and pro-Syrian forces accompanied by some Russian tanks.
There's a news article out about it. They do a pretty good job of covering it.
Wasn't there a secondary engagement that the news didn't really cover?
And there's a secondary engagement that happened. And it was a great time to be in the Delta Force. It was a bad time to be in the Wagner Group.
Well said, my friend. Anything else from Syria stand out that you want to talk about?
This is more just opinion based, and I don't know the right answer for it. You know, it rubs me wrong in some area. Our pulling out of Syria and really our support, you know, for the Kurds and giving them a Kurdish nation, you know, which is what they wanted. They wanted a Rojava. They wanted a Kurdistan. That's what they want. That's why they fought so hard for us. Syria lost land to ISIS. That's how land has been won and lost from the beginning of time. Say what you want about the Indians in America. Guess what? America took the land from them via war, the same way Italy, Germany, Russia. No one is in their original land from the beginning of time. It happened at one point. So Syria loses land to ISIS. The Kurds step up and gain the land. Why isn't it the Kurds' land now? Why do they have to give it back to Syria? There's a part of me that, you know, doesn't understand that or want to understand that. Of course, I know enough to debate that and tell you the reasons why politically Syria is going to want their land back. That puts us in a bind. And there's even a little bit more to that because of the Kurdish terrorist groups, the PKK in Turkey muddles it even more. But this goes back to my saying where people will go, you know, the biggest lie you ever told? It's not that easy. No, it's that easy. The Kurds paid for this land and blood, and now it's their land. And Syria, if you don't like it, come take it from them. I don't necessarily like how we never really supported them in their vision of a Kurdistan and Rojava after supporting us. They're probably the best partner force we've ever had. So I hate that. In a more cold-hearted way, I'm glad to see we could finally pull out of a conflict. Seems like we have a problem pulling out of conflicts. We kicked their ass and we left. I think that's what we've always wanted from our government. So I don't really know how to feel, you know, about the ending of how that ended for the people who helped us out so much. And we kind of look like we used them and left. But I don't know.
Fair enough. So this might be the most important part of our conversation. How did you know when you were done?
I was ready to put in 30 years. I saw, like, you know, you're going to have to ask me to leave the military. Like this, you know, no, I'm at the end of my team time. So, you know, the good times are leaving. I'm going to have to take a desk job at some point. I'm pushing on 10 years on team. I've gone through all the positions on a team, and it's time for the next guy, you know, to do the job. But there's a lot of factors involved. One, my health. My health went from top of the world, as strong as I ever was, holding gym records in Syria on everything I wanted to hold a record on, to my back hurt so bad when we got done clearing an objective, I had to push the couch out of the way so I could lay on the ground and stretch out my back because I wasn't going to make it back to the trucks. My back just completely gave up on me. It's one issue. Starting to talk about the issue with my blood work. At some point, at the beginning, it just kind of started to seem like I thought I was sick for a little bit, and then you go through these range of emotions where I think I have cancer. Like maybe all these burn pits finally got to me, and I'm dying. And then to be like, you're not dying, you're just now lazy. And then going, I didn't make it all the way to Delta Force as a lazy bastard. And you go months and months, of telling yourself why here and why. Um, and then never getting checked out. No, never only going to work. What's next? That's what's next. When we get done with this, oh, I'll go check on myself after that. You get done with that. Like, oh, well, now we have this. Well, I don't want to miss the train up for that, and I don't want to miss that. So, but after we get done with that, then I'll take care of myself. And I did that for months and months and months until I had nothing left. It only got worse and worse and worse. Probably the final straw. We were doing some training, and I just on several events in one day, the no-no to the door charge didn't unwind all the way, and it put us really close to the door charge. It was just a training run. We should have just said, "Hey, stop, unwind this, unfuck this, and let's wind it out to a safe distance, and let's go." And we were way too close to a couple of these charges, and it really. I just had another really bad night Halo landing that knocked me out, and then these two charges that one made me almost immediately start dry heaving and throwing up. The other one I had to put my gun down as soon as I got in my first room because all I could see was stars, and right after that, I was having some really really bad memory problems. It got to a point where me and the family are driving to church one morning. I'm just driving, and my wife goes, "Where are we going, Brent? Where are we going?" And I had no idea where we were going. I had missed the turn to church miles back, and I looked at us and I looked how we were dressed, and I said, "I think we're going to church." To be honest with you, the only reason why I say that is because see how we're dressed. I have no idea what day it is. I have no idea where we're going. I have no idea how long I've been driving. And she's like, "You're going to go get checked out. You've been doing this stuff for too long. If you don't go get checked out, I will call your work and get you checked out." And that was a tough call to, go to the medic and be like, "Hey man, I need to talk to the PA." And, start that process of saying, and I'd been messing up for a while. The only thing that kept me of sorts right was writing things down and writing lists. I had to write lists all the time. Oh, did I write lists? I'd write lists, look at lists, and not remember writing lists. Like that's when I knew it was bad. And anytime I got around explosions, the further I would get away from explosions, it'd get better, get better, get better. As soon as I'd get around explosions, that's when it's time to start writing heavy notes again, because it's going to happen. I could go on for another 30 minutes and tell you some really weird things that started going on with my life and my memory, and to be honest with you, it scared me. So between that, my health, I had a bad boss at the time. That's an understatement. I had the worst boss I've ever had at the time. He had no business being a boss, just toxic leadership, and he just add this whole stew together. His name was JR. You had this whole little stew together. It was just like, I'm done. Like, what? Well, I went from last year. You couldn't pry me away from this place to, I've done three areas of three distinct, different theaters of combat. It's been a pretty good run. And it wasn't one of those, "Yay, I wish I had more." It was man, actually, what am I sticking around for? Like, my team time's done. Like, I've done everything that I wanted to do. I could retire. It's time to retire. And to be honest with you, I left that place, and I stopped the day I left. I stopped for a drink at a bar by myself. Um, I had a drink. I just sat there and thought about a whole bunch of nothing, to be honest with you. I then drove home. I was like, how is it? I'm good. What's for dinner tonight? And sure, every now and again I see something happen on the TV. And I think about back when I was in the Delta Force, I'd see this and I'd go start packing. Like, the country needs me. It sucks not to be needed. It sucks, but I'm okay with it. Stay busy like anything else. You can lament on the past, you can lament on what you wish was happening, or you could wish that Delta Force ride lasts forever. It doesn't last forever. And so what are you going to do with your life now? And so I had to make that decision like anyone else. 6 feet forward, 6 feet under.
Did you handle it better than maybe you were anticipating handling it, or was there any sort of, like you said, not being needed, any sort of loss of identity? How the train keeps moving when you get off of it.
It's it's a little bit of a well-known fact the train keeps moving when you get off of it. Like you can think all you want, and part of it's true. When you lost me, you lost a lot of combat experience, and there are unit guys now that probably never served in Afghanistan, or if they were, they didn't see real combat in Afghanistan as a Green Beret or Ranger. We lost a ton of experience, and that experience of wars, whether you like those wars or not, the Delta Force was as good as it ever was, thanks to honing its skills night in, night out to war. But you know what? 9/11 happened, and a bunch of Delta Force guys went to war, never saw war before. They were just fine. Delta Force would be just fine without me.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit in the car just about how lucky you were as somebody who wanted to do that sort of thing.
Right. And woe is me, boo-hoo for me. I got to see the most combat and I got to see almost 2 decades worth of combat over 3 theaters. I got to be a Green Beret. I got to go to the Delta Force. I got to do every school the military has to offer. It's a classic case, a little bit of it's the same type of personality that gets you there. That when is enough, enough's never enough, for those types of people. And you always want more, and you never want it to end. And that's what that's what drives you. But if you don't do a good job of realizing reality and shifting that need for doing good, that need for doing something with a purpose, that need for filling your time in a manner that you think will be worth your time. If not, you're gonna have a hard time with retirement.
Yeah.
Some people do, and some people don't. Some people I have got friends that just moved to Montana on their small military retirement, and they get a cabin in the woods, and they just want to detach, fish, and hunt, and they don't want to see another person, and they can spend the rest of their days not being busy, alone with their thoughts, and they do just fine.
Mm.
And that's an option too for some guys.
That doesn't sound so bad.
It doesn't. I know. I tell you what. After working a year as hard as I ever have for as little money, sometimes I think maybe I should have done that.
Hey, still time.
It's still time. No, there's not. There's only one option now, and that's to work your ass off for years and years and years and make something out of it.
So, last thing on this, and just giving some context to what we started talking about before, we had to push this interview back a couple days because your son had a football game that you and I both wanted you to be at.
Yeah.
And over that couple days, the second part of your interview with Ryan Fugit on Combat Story came out. And I would encourage people to go watch it because it's a good one. But the thing that stood out to me far above everything else was at the end of the podcast, he asked you, would you do it all over again? And I think maybe a lot of listeners would anticipate you or somebody, in your position to say, absolutely, I would, in a heartbeat. It was the highlight of my life. It was an honor, tomorrow. But your answer was real. And you said, I don't know. And going back to what I said before, man, like about this being the most impactful part of our conversation, part of the reason I want to interview operators is because I want civilians to understand the sacrifices that you make as the operator with your mind and your body. But there's also the sacrifices that your families make if they're lucky enough to not become a Gold Star family.
No.
So do you mind kind of just painting the picture to people? What was your thought process behind that answer?
The thought process is really twofold, right? I feel like we always, yeah, and I don't know, maybe everyone has this. Well, maybe not everyone does. 'Cause they get to live the life I did. I don't mean that in a good or bad way. It was a unique life, and it's not over. I'm not talking like it's over, but it was a lifetime of experience, and those 20 years, and there'll always be a part of me that will forever be grateful and forever walk around proud and forever know who I am as a man and what I've done. And I don't have to get into bar fights and I don't have to go drink straight whiskey to prove I'm a man. I go around drinking Coke Zero for the rest of my life and know I'm a man. So that type of, probably a bad way to explain it all, but that type of just satisfaction with who you are as a person can only, well, I almost said could only come from one thing. For me, came from that. And there's something to be said for living a life of no regrets. Let me tell you, there's something else to be said of living a life of coming home to your wife and kids every day and getting to ask your kids every day, how was school today? Getting to tell your kids every day, let me impart some wisdom on you. Getting to never have to dress your kids up to go to a funeral. Never have to tell your kids why we're going to another funeral. Never having your kids come visit you in the hospital. Never having your kids grab onto your leg and ask you not to leave again, Daddy. So yeah, I as great as the ride was, and I don't know, it's hard to imagine not being a part of that ride. As you can see, it's pretty easy to imagine not being on that ride and not waking up every day like you're hungover yet you haven't had a drip of alcohol. I could do without that. But at the end of the day, it would mean doing without a lifetime of accomplishments. And I don't know. I don't know. That was the mindset behind that. And that's a hard question. It's not a straightforward question. It's a hard question. But rather than saying, would you do it all over again? It's a hard question to answer. The other question is, would more or less be, are you proud of what you did? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? Yeah, it was worth it.
Thank you for sharing that. Seriously. I think a lot of, on these podcasts, we talk about the sexy, cool guy shit and, the getting on the helicopter in the middle of the night with your boys. And don't get me wrong, people want to hear those stories. Yeah. You're not getting on this podcast and beating your chest. I'm asking you because I want to know, and I act as a proxy for the listener who also wants to know.
Appreciate that.
But on the other side of that coin, I think it's really, really important to illustrate just what it is that there's a price to pay, like you said. So again, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. The last thing I'll say is, what I do now in life, which is First Responders Coffee Company and First Responder Cigar Company. After I got out, I started working with SWAT teams a lot, training SWAT teams. I didn't expect SWAT teams to be funded like the Delta Force. I didn't expect them, I I had reasonable expectations of what law enforcement SWAT teams should be resourced with, and they were low, and they didn't meet that by any means. And the people we send out in our communities on a nightly basis to go after our bad guys do not have the backing that they need, both resources and politically. Well, I can't do anything about politically, but I can do something about resources. So I founded First Responder Coffee Company, which I said, which then evolved into First Responder Cigar Company, and we've been at it for a year. I haven't made any money. That's unfortunate, but no one told me I'd make money in my first year. In fact, I've lost money, but I did do what I set out to do, and we raised $20,000 for first responders, and that went to law enforcement. That went to paramedics who were stabbed in the back of ambulances. That went to wounded firefighters that were hurt on the job. So that's what fills that void in my life now of what the Delta Force used to give me of purpose and a reason to go to work every day. I do it with my brother and several other employees, but it's something I was raised in a family business, working with my brother every day. Now we get to hire my brother and hopefully pass on a family business to my kids. And I genuinely pray there's no 9/11 that pulls them away from this, and they get to finish the dream that I started.
Yeah. And by the way, I wasn't going to end it there. I just wanted to thank you for
Yeah.
going into some details there. I want to
Yeah.
talk about FRCC.
Yeah.
Something that stood out to me, and when I reached out to you originally to get you to come out here, something that stood out to me was the Orlando SWAT guys, the handwritten letter you sent them.
Yeah.
That was a cool move. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. One of the things I do is, which is appropriate for this, because you guys heard about me getting shot, my recovery, and getting hurt on the job, and what it does to you mentally and physically. Unfortunately, law enforcement officers get shot all the time in this country. It's sickening. And for the funds we do have, we give them checks to say thank you that wasn't in vain. People do care about the sacrifice, and we send them coffee, we send them hats, we send them shirts, and a little swag package. But I also send them a check with money, and I don't tell them how to spend the money, but I do give them a request. I said, this is what I ask you to do. People like that just give and give and give. I said, I want you to take this money. I want you to spend it on yourself and only yourself. I want you to buy something you'd never buy. I don't care if it's the most expensive bottle of champagne or whiskey or wine. Go jump out of an airplane. Go buy the most ridiculous steak you've ever seen. Whatever you do, buy something, spend it all on yourself, and enjoy that night. Take a limo to that steak dinner.
Yeah.
I write all this, because I want to. You have a second chance at life again that almost got taken away from you. And I'm telling them, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to get shot, to have to come back from it, to have to question yourself. To question yourself. Did I do the right thing? Was it my fault I got shot? What do people now think that I'm a liability? Are they going to think that I screwed up when I got shot? These were fleeting thoughts for me. But if someone like me is thinking of them, I bet someone like them is thinking of them more. That's not me looking down on my nose at them. That's just the reality of the situation, and it's true. So I get to write them that. I give them my phone number, so you can call me anytime. That's one of my favorite things I do, and I've made a lot of friends that way. A lot of them will call me back and say, "Hey, love that that you sent me that, and I really appreciate it." When it happened in my own backyard of Orlando, two officers got shot. One was actually a SWAT cop. He wasn't a full-time SWAT. He just got on the force. And him and another officer during a traffic stop got for no reason really started getting shot up by this suspect. He thought he was getting pulled over because he was a wanted violent suspect. They were just pulling him over for traffic reasons. He goes high order on him, and really attempts on her, which is one of the police officers, to execute her. He's trying to shoot her in the face over and over and over again, execution style, and she's just fighting it. Thank God she's a fighter and didn't want to give up. So I immediately wanted to do something for them in the backyard. But while we're doing this, in fact, one of the Orlando SWAT police officers is the cover of our police bag for our coffee bag. I basically write him a text message. I know they're gearing up, and I know they're looking for this guy. I said, hey, maybe a little cheesy, but I hate telling people to be safe. Whenever someone told me to be safe, it scratched. Like, do you know what I do? I guess. So I always told people to be dangerous. Be dangerous. And that's what I told him. I said, hey, be dangerous tonight. And he said, I will be. Come to find out, a happy ending of something that rarely happens in police work, because usually what happens, the suspect will flee into a different county, and now someone else's police department gets to take care of your trash. The perfect storm happens. This suspect stays within OPD territory, doesn't grab a hostage. He's in a hotel room by himself, armed. It's the perfect scenario to SWAT to do what they do. Explosive breach, they don't get to do very often because of all sorts of risk mitigations, just everything lined up. They go in there, and I'm sure out of self-defense, they end up killing this guy. And just like we talked about, I don't think people know at the end of the day, like you see it on movies, like, oh, guys getting on a helicopter in the middle of the night, flying away, must be cool. They don't know at the end of the day some of the things you deal with. Well, everyone looked at that and like, oh, great, SWAT did what SWAT does. They come out on top the way the good guys always come out on top. No, they don't. Those guys were stacked up on that wall. One guy, I'm sure, leg was shaking. Middle of the night, waiting on a countdown, wondering, when I go through this breach, are there going to be lead flying by my face and maybe one hit me between my eyes and I'm in heaven before I even know what hit me? You have no idea the pressure. If you let your mind start wondering where it takes you and how you don't know how tonight's going to end. Yet what'd they all do? They all did their job. They went through that door, had each other's back, and they came out on top. There was no guarantee to that. So I don't ever want them to think people take that for granted. I wrote him a letter basically saying that from one guy who used to go through doors for a living to people who do it now, I'm grateful, and I couldn't be more proud of what you did. And I sent him a box of cigars. I also let him know, I said, hey, we talked about this a little bit. I said, hey, someone will tell you that life is precious and all life should be carefully considered before taking it. I said, that's not true, and some people deserve to die. And that night, you gave this guy immediate justice of what he deserved. And I want to thank you for that. It's probably a weird thing to thank someone for. But I thanked him for that. I thanked him for the courage it takes to go through that door. And I sent him cigars, and I said, hey, smoke these cigars and enjoy tonight, because you won't get this very often. And it meant a lot to them. They framed it, put it up on the wall, and hopefully smoked some cigars. So stuff like that makes this whole FRCC venture completely worth it.
Yeah, man, I said it in the beginning, and I'll say it again. You guys should be really, really proud of what you've done, because you're a private company. There's a lot of companies that may say, you know what, we don't have to openly disclose our finances. Nobody's going to know if we just keep an extra couple grand this week. Let's just pay
Right.
these bills. But you fucking do it anyway.
Right.
And you guys should be, like I said, very proud of that.
Thank you.
So, well done.
Like everything else, it's come at a great cost. That's all right. Everything worthwhile comes at a great cost.
Where can people find you?
Instagram at FRC Coffee, and on Facebook at FRCC USA, and of course on our website, frccoffee.com and frccigars.com. Go to any of those spots. You can get a hold of me. You can go to, I check that Instagram luckily I don't have to run it. But if you message me on Instagram, it'll get to me. I'll hear your message. Same thing with the website. Go to the website, contact us. Someone randomly reaches out to me all the time about a podcast. Even fallen soldiers' dads reach out to me and get a hold of me during podcasts. And my time is limited, but I try my best to get around and answer and be respectful. Anyone who took the time to get a hold of me, I'll write you back.
Yeah, man, the coffee's good. I'm very caffeinated. We've been drinking it all day.
We're all hopped up.
I'm excited to have a cigar here in a bit. And again, man, I'm always honored that people would come out here and spend some time with me. In this case, I might be a little biased and extra honored because I love this country, and a lot of people that are watching do as well. So again, man, thank you for what you did in the military. Thank you for what you're doing now for our first responders. And thank you for your time, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Glad to be here.